I see the last few folks trickling in from the lobby. Again, if you need any help finding your table, we are here to help. And we are ready to get underway. Respected guests, colleagues, friends, collaborators, welcome everyone. Thank you for all coming. My name is John Carroll from KRDO News Channel 13. I was going to say you won't see me on TV at noon today, but it appears you will. I'm honored to be your host today of this event sponsored by the Independence Center. The next hour we spend together will be to mark an important occasion, the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Our agenda includes watching several short videos, hearing from our keynote speaker, Richard Devylder from California, and giving out several community awards. We know you all lead busy lives, and our commitment to you is to both celebrate and get you out of here by 1 o'clock. Before we begin our program, I understand there are several elected officials and some dignitaries with us today that we'd like to thank for their attendance. Stand and be recognized, please, when I call your name. And let's do our applause at the end. Amy Lathan, Chairman of the El Paso County Commissioners. Well, throw that out the window. Jeff Green, Chief of Staff. Where's Jeff? There's Jeff. And Merv Bennett and Tom Strand, Colorado Springs City Council members, are here as well. Jeff, Chief of Staff for the City of Colorado Springs, by the way. Terry Carver, State House Representative for the City of Colorado Springs. And also with us today, State Representative Kit Rupe. Hello, Kit. And where would we be without the participation of our 19 sponsors? We'd be hungry. Please take a moment to thank the sponsors at your table. One quick reminder for those who have trouble with gluten, the chicken dinner is gluten-free except, and this is really cruel, I think, except for the key lime pie. That's off limits, okay? Talk to the chef. To start off our program, we'll be showing a short 6-minute video produced by the ADA National Network.
This historic act is the world's first comprehensive declaration of equality for people with disabilities. The first. I now lift my pen to sign this Americans with Disability Act and say, let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down. God bless you all.
I really believe that people with disabilities are the greatest untapped resource in this country today.
The ADA has given us the right to travel the sidewalks and streetscapes of our country.
The ADA was the critical linchpin of changing things, and now it's an ongoing process of using it to try to create these kinds of changes.
ADA's done just fantastic things with people that are blind, people in wheelchairs, getting up public transportation.
The big thing that I see is in transportation for me. Being able to travel around the country independently in a power wheelchair to just about any city in the country is definitely a factor of the ADA.
People with disabilities are out and about, and one of the reasons they're out and about is because the ADA required that transportation providers make their services, make their transportation accessible.
No one would have installed curb cuts if it weren't for people with disabilities. Now everyone uses them.
The transportation systems are getting more and more comfortable, working with people with disabilities, and it's just, I've just seen huge changes in that area.
Because it doesn't do a person with a disability much good if they can apply for a job and they get the job if they can't actually get to work.
We have more technology today, everything from not only desktop electronic magnifiers, but we now have pocket magnifiers that are electronic and allow us to be mobile with those types of magnification devices.
Where some of the assistive technology could be really helpful is with some of the nonverbal people with autism. Some of these people do have a good brain in there. They can learn to type independently.
Now many movie theaters have open captions, so I can go to a movie on opening day just like hearing individuals can. When I go to a hotel, I have a visible fire alarm if there were to be a fire. They have equipment there that makes it accessible for me, like alarm clocks that vibrate, TTYs.
I know that people with disabilities want to go to work. They want to feel the pride of earning a paycheck, and they have talents that they can contribute.
Particularly for the blind community, we experience about a 70% unemployment rate when compared to the rest of society.
If people want a new job, they can get an interpreter for the interview and be able to secure that job. So I think the Americans with Disabilities Act has impacted deaf people's lives in a variety of ways.
The ADA Amendments Act is really about bringing down barriers and providing people with disabilities not only access to accommodations and public buildings and stuff, but access to opportunities.
I think the biggest struggle of people dealing with mental health issues is to have the public acknowledge that they are discriminated against, that it is a disability and they do face discrimination.
When people that have a hidden disability, they're going to need accommodations like being away from fluorescent lights, have a quiet place to work. Those are two really important accommodations, and those are usually easy to do.
We have so many veterans who have been wounded in combat now coming home and are going to need the proper support so that they can enter the workforce.
It would be my hope that people use the Act to continue to achieve the basic rights that they're entitled to, that everybody has and that everybody wants.
And the younger generation definitely needs to know what their rights are, but also to take that responsibility of leading the charge now and moving this forward.
And it's really only now, 20 years after the ADA, that people have a full complement of resources.
Disability in general is an equal opportunity condition, and that the longer we live, the older we get, each one of us has the opportunity to acquire a disability.
I may be the first quadriplegic to serve in the United States Congress, but I most certainly won't be the last. ADA has certainly provided a great vehicle and a pathway for people with disabilities to succeed.
Hopefully, in the next 10 to 20 years, we'll make that much more progress.
Anybody out, but people at this table were talking through the whole video. Just saying. Hey, and right? Yeah, okay. Well, I'd now like to introduce you to Owen Stockton, Chairman of the Board of Directors at the Independence Center. Owen.
Wow, what a great turnout. I was supposed to be gone today. I'm really glad I was able to make it here, even though they asked me to come up on stage. But I'd also like to thank, we do have some other board members here today. Lynn Peltz, Serena Gilbert, I think I saw her, Tim Rowan, and Drew Wills. If you could all raise your hand, stand up, holler, shout so we could see you. Thanks for all you do at the Independence Center. What a great video we just saw. And it made some great points. And as I've been sitting on the board at the Independence Center, I'm learning more and more about people with disabilities. And from the depth and the diversity of this audience, I can see a lot of people who have both been a part of and benefited from the American Disabilities Act. The history of the American Disabilities Act did not start by that signing ceremony that we just saw that took place in 1990. Long before that date, thousands of activists participated in the disability rights movement with small actions and large actions. In Denver during the 1970s, for example, some of you may remember ADAPT, the Americans Disabled for Accessible Public Transit. A group of people with disabilities and their allies surrounded city buses to demand access to the public transportation system. They were one of the first groups to help people leave skilled nursing facilities and live independently. Or you might have heard of the transformation of this country's only college for the deaf. Gallaudet University in 1988, the students passionately and successfully demanded a deaf president now. Hundreds of actions like these make up the backbone of the disability civil rights movement. This movement fought to create and pass the Americans with Disabilities Act. Are there people at this luncheon that remember that time? Are there any that were there, that were a part of building the bridge to the Americans with Disabilities Act? If you participated in the beginning of this movement, could you please raise your hand, stand, make a noise, shout? Thank you. We have made great strides, and yet there is more to do. In the words of Justin Dart, who is sometimes called the father of the ADA, we have overcome, and we will overcome. If you are here today and are currently actively engaged in continuing to work to achieve the full promise of this legislation, please raise your hand, stand, make a noise. And I think this will probably almost everybody here, if you or someone close to you has been impacted by the passage of the ADA, please let us know you're here and let us celebrate with you. I understand the City of Colorado Springs has a special announcement now. I'd like to introduce Marv Bennett, the President of the City Council.
Well, thank you for all of you for being here on this important day. This is a proclamation from the City Council of Colorado Springs, proclamation to recommit to full implementation of the ADA. Whereas on July 26, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act to ensure the civil rights of people with disabilities. And whereas this legislation established a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. And whereas on July 26, 2015, we will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the signing of the ADA. And whereas approximately 20% of our population has this form of disability, and whereas as citizens, consumers, taxpayers, and workers, people with disabilities are contributing to our city and to our own fulfillment of the American dream. And whereas the ADA has expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers and changing perceptions and increasing full participation in community life. However, the full promise of the ADA will only be reached if we remain committed to continue our efforts to fully implement the ADA. And whereas on the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the City of Colorado Springs celebrates and recognizes the progress that has been made by reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion and recommitting our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. Now, therefore, I, Merv Bennett, President of Colorado Springs City Council, do hereby affirm to continue to work towards full ADA compliance and urge all citizens to join in this observation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I'd like to also acknowledge the El Paso County and its leadership, which also adopted their own proclamation last Tuesday. It reaffirms their commitment and says, in part, the Board of El Paso Commissioners today unanimously approved an official proclamation recognizing the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act and expressing its support of opportunities it affords to citizens with disabilities. The ADA has expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers and changing perceptions, and the county wants all citizens to be able to fully enjoy participation in community life. I think we speak for the entire community of people with disabilities when we say thank you to both the leaders of the City of Colorado Springs and the leaders of El Paso County. Now, lucky for all of you, I get to go sit down and time to eat. And there should be some questions on, some trivia questions about the ADA at your table. Please get to know everybody at your table and enjoy your lunch.
Everyone, please keep enjoying your meal. It's delicious. But we have a full program today, and we want to continue on right now. While many of you know our hosts for this occasion, the Independence Center, you may not know of its long history. It all started in 1987. The Independence Center's founder, Vicky Skoog, had become a quadriplegic due to an automobile accident and was having a difficult time finding reliable home health care. In true entrepreneurial fashion, she decided to remedy the situation by starting her own health care service. The emphasis of the home health care services was, and continues to be, maximizing the independence of the people they serve. Over the years, the agency began to grow programming to build community and independence for people with all types of disabilities. Today, the agency is a federally recognized independent living center and provides 14 different programs for and with people with disabilities. Dr. Patricia Yeager came to the Independence Center 4 years ago, and since she has been at the helm of the organization, programming has tripled. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Patricia Yeager.
You know, I only use doctor when I want to intimidate people, and I'm not really wanting to intimidate anyone here yet today. But anyway, we welcome you to our celebration. This is the first time we've done this, and to have so many people here, it's just amazing. So my staff know that I tend to cry at the drop of a hat when I have lots of joy, so I have my napkin here. Hopefully that's not going to occur. Before I introduce Richard, I want to say that, you know, living in Pikes Peak region with a disability is not an easy thing. And for all of you who have a disability, my hat is off to you. Because it takes perseverance, it takes stick-to-itiveness, it takes ingenuity, because there's very little accessible housing. If you don't drive, you have a second disability, because public transit is not what it should be. Curb cuts and sidewalks don't work. People who are blind, everyone has a problem with the curb cuts, but particularly people with disabilities. Healthcare is a problem. If you're deaf, hard of hearing, you may not hear your doctor in this town. If you're in a wheelchair, you may not get out of your chair for an examination. But today, I have hope. I have hope because the ADA is finally coming down over the hill from Monument Path to Colorado Springs because of the people you're going to meet today, the people that we give awards to. It's finally starting to happen. The city and the county are starting to take a leadership role, and that's where it starts, with the local governments and with advocates. And today we see that we have a lot of people on the same page. So I have hope, and I hope by the time we get done with this lunch, all of you will share that hope as change is starting to come. So I want to introduce Richard Devylder, who's a friend of mine from California. We have run independent living centers together. He went on to be a division director at the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation in California. He's advised 2 governors in California on emergency preparedness for people with disabilities. He's worked for the Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C. As you're going to see in a minute, he has a very significant disability, and he has done this all independently. So we're going to see a short video here, about 6 minutes, to give you a little context. This video is done as a labor of love. In our community, we share through peer support, and this video will show you how Richard copes and lives his life without any limbs at all. So please turn your attention to this.
Welcome to the day in life of me, Richard. What we want this video to show is how assistive technology is critical for a person with a severe disability to live independently. I was born in 1969 without arms or legs. I was born into an Armenian family that believed I was the result of a sin that either one or both committed. I then went into foster care and grew up with my entire foster family. So what we're going to show you here is exactly what life is day to day for me, using technology and how I learned to do things on my own. In terms of assistive technology, it isn't always what's made at a manufacturer, but it's oftentimes, as you will see, what friends and family have come up with together to make it work for me. A typical day begins at 5:30 a.m., which I immediately go and use my electric shaver. My electric shaver is just a basic shaver that you buy in any store. But what's different is the mechanism by which it is placed into so that I can shave by myself. You will see that it's basic wood that's put together and drilled into a table, of which I'm able to move my face in different directions on the shaver in order to shave myself. I came up with this mechanism because I was getting tired of others who would shave me with straight razors and would cut me, and I felt that there had to be an easier way to make it happen. I need assistance in terms of taking a shower, getting dressed. I'm able to brush my own teeth. I need assistance in terms of putting the toothpaste on, setting up the water, and then mouthwashes. And then I'm able to brush my own teeth with using my shoulders and the sink. And what you see that the sink is the stability, and the toothbrush is placed between my shoulder and the sink. And I'm able to move my mouth in whatever direction and begin to turn the toothbrush in order to get certain angles in my mouth. The shape of the toothbrush is important because if it's not a certain shape where I can actually roll it and turn it, it becomes more difficult for me to get the angles that I need while I'm brushing my teeth. I have a shower chair in my shower, which somebody transfers me on. I try to minimize the number of times an individual has to lift me for my own safety and for their own safety. So I do need to be lifted onto the toilet, and from the toilet into the shower, onto the shower chair, and then I go from my shower chair to the wheelchair. In order to accomplish independence in terms of living on my own and going out into the community without an attendant 24 hours a day, I was going to have to figure out how to take myself to the restroom, to develop pants that I could operate on my own. The way the pants works, after almost a year of trying different things, is we very simply we removed the zipper from the pants and replaced it with Velcro. Then we took some material and developed some loops that get sewed on to the front of the pants. And I have a mouth stick, which the mouthpiece is specially made for my teeth, in which my teeth can fit in nice and securely without hurting myself. And the stick has at the end of it a hook. I'm able to take the hook and put it within the loop and pull. One way to open the pants and another way to close the pants. As I said, it took almost a year to develop those type of pants, but it was very important for me to be able to do that. And because of that, I was able to live independently. Once I'm completed getting ready for work, and I climb up my stairs into my wheelchair, I then head out the door to light rail. The light rail takes me approximately 7 minutes to go from my house to light rail. You'll see that I have to ride on the streets, because although we've come a long ways in terms of access, in my neighborhood there are no curb cutouts, which means that I really cannot ride on the sidewalk, because I would have to go on and off the sidewalk too often, and it's not an easy thing to maneuver in my wheelchair. Light rail and fixed route and paratransit are the three main ways that I get around Sacramento and other parts of town when I'm in town somewhere. So I use the street to get into the light rail. I take the light rail for about 40 minutes into my office, and then I head into my office, and the first thing I do is go onto the computer and check my emails and begin to respond and to begin to do the documents and work that I need to get done. I have two means by which I use my computer, with a pen or a pencil in my mouth and voice recognition, which is called Dragon Naturally Speaking. Start Microsoft Excel. I have a Kensington Expert mouse, which I use with my shoulder to maneuver around on the screen. And then I'm able to use the buttons, and they're formatted for my purpose, whatever way is easy for me to get around the screen. My day is spent meeting with my staff and meeting with people out in the community. I try to keep up with my staff as to what's going on a daily basis. At the conclusion of my day, I get back on light rail and I head home. Same route typically each day, unless I'm downtown at a meeting or somewhere else. Several months ago, I started not to feel well, and so I decided to contact the doctor. By not having any arms or legs, it is very difficult for many medical procedures to be done. Specifically, it's very difficult to get my blood pressure. So on this day, I went into Kaiser for testing to try to figure out how we can measure my blood pressure. Typically for people who are paralyzed and are unable to get blood pressure, there's a test that's done through the eyes. I'm going into an appointment with an ophthalmologist, but it really isn't about my vision. It's about my blood pressure. Although they did a full exam of my eyes, which was important to do while I was there, because transportation to and from medical appointments is very difficult, the primary focus was to get my blood pressure. They were able to use a basic probe and were able to successfully measure the blood pressure. And basically what that is putting pressure on the artery in the back of your eye in order to measure it. It's very difficult, took a while, and there was a risk in what we were doing, but it was important to eliminate the fact of whether or not I was having high blood pressure issues, which I was not. From there, we decided to go and weigh me, and we used the wheelchair accessible scale. What was interesting about using the wheelchair accessible scale is none of us knew what my wheelchair weighed. What was important is that Kaiser had someone available who could lift me out of my wheelchair and put me on a regular scale so I could determine my weight and subtract that from the total weight that we had with me in my wheelchair, which allowed us to determine the weight of my wheelchair for future reference. When going to a medical appointment, what was very important in this process is that I was able to stay in my wheelchair for the most part of the examinations. That allowed me to have a little more control by being in my wheelchair than once I'm taken out. The medical staff clearly were skilled in understanding how to move the equipment and how to arrange my wheelchair for the eye examination. That made a big difference. I was able to sit in my chair, which I'm measured for and I'm comfortable, and not in their chair, and I was able to control. What's also very important throughout my appointment is you'll see that I was giving verbal directions to the medical staff. It's important not to guess or not to think that they know how to assist you, but it's important to communicate with them so that they do know how to assist you, and so that there aren't any mistakes made that could hurt yourself or could injure them. And that's why I constantly gave verbal communication to them as to how to assist me.
Because rather than have you listen to a video, I'd rather introduce Richard Devylder. It's great. Thank you.
I was going to say thank you, Dr. Yeager, but she'll punch me. Well, it's great to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation from the Independence Center and all of you who are involved in putting this together. I wanted to ask, how many of you are disability rights advocates? How many of you? Excellent. I know it's weird for a guy without arms and legs to be asking you to show your hands, but that's the way it works. How many of you are elected officials? Don't be scared. I'm not going to hurt you. How many of you are parents of someone with a disability? Very good. So now all of you need to meet each other while you're here, because you really need to build on what you're doing today for the future. And I really believe in coming together as a community is so important. So first of all, happy anniversary, ADA, and to all you advocates who are making it work. It's a big thing for us, or as Vice President Biden once said, it's a big deal in one of the press conferences. But what's really important, and what I always say about the ADA, it's just a blueprint. It's simply a blueprint. We have to make it happen. It's up to us as advocates, it's up to us as elected officials and parents and those of you who are interested in the civil rights of people with disabilities. Is the law is there, but it's a blueprint. We have to figure out how do we make it work in our communities, and how do we address the needs of our communities to do things that are right. As Patricia said earlier, I've been involved in a lot of different jobs, and I've been very fortunate. I've actually worked for President Obama and 3 governors in California. And it's been fun and exciting. It's a lot of pressure. And one of the things that I've said to every one of them in my work and those who they put into leadership in the different levels is, it's not that we need new laws. It's that we need to enforce the laws that exist. And we really have to do that. And we have to make sure those who are out in the communities, who have responsibility from local government to make sure that builders are building facilities correctly or aren't fudging when they're doing modifications, to make sure that we can actually get in the restroom if they're going to be public restrooms that are available. And so in my work, I've done several things. I've been anywhere from the guy advising on the enforcement to the guy who was helping them draft the regulations to make things work and how it's going to work at a national level, but also at a state level, to a guy who was in the middle of the burning fires, coming in at 2 in the morning, going out to make sure that people with disabilities were being taken care of in a way, but really that we were achieving access in what we were doing. So I can remember coming back from many fires with my black wheelchair full of soot. And then I was reminded for 2 or 3 weeks when I was coughing that stuff up that we were there in the middle of the action. And so I've been fortunate to be able to really see what goes on. I believe that most people are trying to do what's right. And I believe that most people want to see access. Because in my opinion, access is no longer just about people with disabilities. It's about everyone. It's about everyone. If you're a parent with a young child, and you have several kids, and you have strollers and bags, I just want to say you're welcome on behalf of the ADA. Because you're benefiting as much as we are to having that. And it goes with a lot of things that we do. Transportation. You know, I was telling a story at an Amtrak ribbon cutting in Michigan last week that I was in California, and when I was working at USDOT, and I was in California visiting my mother, and I was going to go to a Laker game, and I decided to get on a Metrolink train. And it's a passenger train, and I get into the station, and I think to myself, why is everybody on my platform? There was like this long line all the way down from the high platform to the low platform. And the reason for that is no one wants to climb stairs if they don't have to. That's the reality, especially when you are older adults or you're parents with young kids
and you may be mobile, but you don't want to have to climb up those train car steps to be able to access that train. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to be special here because I'm not special. I'm going to get in line with everybody else. So I got in that line with them, and people said to me, hey, come on up, man, come on up. You're supposed to get on first. And I said, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's okay if I'm last on the train. I prefer to be anyways. I wanted to be last on the train because I wanted to watch what they were going to do. And they would get on the train car where there was a high-rise platform, and then they would walk to the other train cars where they wanted to sit, where they would regularly sit in terms of coming to and home from work. Because it was really a commuter train where people were coming to and home from work. And so I went back to USDOT, and we were having a lot of debate at that time about what is level boarding. And I was so frustrated because I really couldn't take pictures by myself. I'm actually getting a device put on my wheelchair where my phone sits straight up because I miss so many pictures to show people of things that I see. And I just explained this to them that that's what level boarding is about. It's about everybody being able to access the train in a much easier manner, and it doesn't take 15 minutes to get me on the train. Because for those that love trains, you want to be on time, right? And none of you are going to admit it today, but you really hate guys like me who hold the train up for 10 to 15 minutes to get on it. You know you do. I see your face when I get on that train, and you're all mad at me. And so part of our goal when we released level boarding regulations was to make sure that, one, we weren't holding you up on the train. Two, the Obama administration had a priority of high-speed rail, and I explained to them there was no such thing as long as there are people with disabilities and not level platforms. It just doesn't exist. So one of the things that I've learned over the years in terms of my work is we have to let go. So when I went into the emergency management world, I was an idiot. I knew nothing about this stuff. And the only reason I went into it is I was asking the governor's office and the Office of Emergency Services too many questions. So we had big fires. Some of you might remember the big fires we had in 2007 in California, and it was really a mess. You all have had big fires in your area, and you've had it throughout Colorado, and that's just the nature of what we're dealing with these days. And so a lot happened. There was a lot of advocacy going on behind the scenes. The California Foundation for Independent Living Centers was a real key public advocate in terms of what we needed. And what they wanted, what the disability communities wanted, was a high-level position within the Office of Emergency Services. They could advise the governor's office and the director, at the time the secretary of OES, on disability access in disasters. And so really I was selected because I was the only one who wouldn't keep my mouth shut and kept asking questions. But one of the points I want to make to you all as advocates is you must always be ready because you never know when the moment is coming. And what I mean by that is you all have priorities. And you have things that are very important to you that you want to see become more accessible. And so, obviously, disasters was important to me until those days. I was working in the Department of Rehabilitation at the time. I knew one of the governor's deputy cabinet secretaries, and so I happened to be on a flight with him. And 2 weeks prior to that, I had sent him an email, and he hadn't replied. So what do you think the first thing I talked to him about? You reply to Richard when he sends you an email. It's good for you. And he wanted to take a nap, and I told him, you know, sorry, man, there's no naps on this flight until we're able to address the issues that we need to address. But that was my moment. I knew, here I am with the big guy. He's going to see the governor every day. He talks to the governor every day about what we need. And so we were able to have a conversation. This was 4 days before the fires broke out in 2007. So I was headed to Minnesota. He was heading to LA to do a budget meeting with Governor Schwarzenegger. And he said to me, well, get a hold of my assistant. Stop sending me emails. You know I don't reply. And then we'll talk. And so I did. What happened, though, was Saturday night, when the fires were breaking out, he sent me a text message and said, can we make that meeting sooner? So when you get back, let's do it right away. And he did. I violated all protocols of government at the state. One, I'm not supposed to talk to the governor's staff because I was an appointee working under other people, and they're supposed to make that happen. Two, I, wink, wink, forgot to tell my boss I was going to meet with the governor's office. But I did. Of course, I couched it as my friend, Dan. was who I was meeting with. And what was important in all this is that I took the moment. He was sitting next to me. I told him what was going on. Yes, unfortunately, we benefited because there was a fire that broke out that was pretty ugly across. There were several fires across the state. And I got to talk to him. I was the inside advocate at that moment, to be able to get inside to him. And then I pointed out to him the other advocates who were on the outside, and I said to him, I can make them go away. But this is what we need. This is how we need to make it happen. And I say to all you advocates, you have to be prepared for that moment because you have no idea when that is actually going to happen. I had no plans to be on a flight with anybody from the governor's office. They just happened to be on the same flight as I happened to be on when I was flying home. And so it's really important that we think that way. And to all of you elected officials and those of you working in government who have responsibility for enforcement, you got to do it. It's hard. I know it's hard. But imagine what it's like for us to be able to get around a community, to be able to get on buses, to be able to get on trains, just to be independent. When I was moving to Long Beach, I just retired in May from my work, although some people say I'm really not going to be retired. But I'm retired right now. So when I retired, I was looking for a place to live. I had to eliminate 3 condominium buildings. Not because the condos weren't accessible, but the sidewalks weren't accessible. Now, pardon my French, but that sucks. That I have to eliminate 3 potential places to live just because I'm concerned about my safety on the sidewalks. I mean, seriously. I shouldn't have to worry about that. But I knew that if I came in at night, I wouldn't be able to see as well. And I knew that there were so many problems with those sidewalks and those curb cuts, especially, that I was probably going to do something stupid and get hurt. And so I say to you all, it's an example of it did impact me. It did impact where I could have possibly lived. Simply because local government wasn't paying attention to what needed to happen in that area and make sure that the needs were met and we were compliant with what was happening. So I just want to say to you all, for the ADA to work, we have to work together. We have to let go of the past. I had to let go of the past. You know, when I started in the emergency management world and I brought the community together with those who had emergency management responsibilities, which is a lot of military and law enforcement and fire guys, and they're all great people that we worked with, and they didn't necessarily understand me, and I was considered a hard-ass advocate. Sorry, there are children in the audience, but that's what I was considered. I actually think I'm pretty calm and mild guy. You should have seen me and Patricia when we were younger. And I always say to the guys, you're lucky it's not my mother. I'm calm compared to my mother on these issues, because when parents see their kids affected by things not happening, it's very hard for them. And that includes in the education process. So really working together, being a part, and I want to say something very controversial. I hate disability advisory groups. Let me repeat myself. I hate disability advisory groups. We must truly be integrated into how you are making decisions. And for good decisions to be made, we have to be at all tables, not just our disability access table. Absolutely. When I was working for the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, that was the first thing that we all had to learn together. Because the first thing they said to me is, when are you going to have that disability advisory group put together? And when will we have that registry of people with disabilities so we know where they are? And I said, oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to do either one of those things. We're going to be integrated in what you're doing. And we really, truly have to do that. So in our state, we have people with disabilities that the director of the Office of Emergency Services appointed. Not to their own group, but they're appointed to the actual planning committees that the state has at the state level. We got a lot of support from the blind community in pushing that, and they pushed a bill that got through to ensure that that would happen. But remember, that's just the blueprint. We still had to make it happen. And so I use that as an example all the time because that's an example where we never had an advisory group and we didn't put people on a database, pretending like we were going to come to rescue them when something happened, and they were at the planning table, all planning tables, so that when the time came to make good decisions, We were all together with a lot of different groups who had a lot of different interests, not just disability and access, but the whole community in terms of what we were trying to achieve. So we're not going to have time for Q&A, so none of you can shoot darts at me right now for this, but I really hope that you all take what you've done today, build upon it, and really work together to achieve it. You don't have to be at each other's throats. You don't have to fight. Some of my best friends in the world right now are people that I went at it with 10, 15 years ago on disability issues, and we became friends over the years. And they're some of my best of friends, and when I travel the country, I go see them to see what's happening and make sure we have dinner together. So thank you all. Good luck to you, and make it happen. Thank you.
We were definitely more radical, and neither one of us have the patience anymore to be nice about access, as nice as we were back in the day. So next, we're going to provide awards. We want to recognize some people that are making, remember I said the ADA is coming down over Monument Path or Monument Hill, and these are people who are making it happen, who are pushing over the hill, and it's going to come down. Owen, I think you're going to do the first one.
Before we actually give out the awards, I want to give you a little bit of history on ACT. ACT stands for the Accessible Communities Today. It is a grassroots group of people who came together to advocate for better access to services and structures for people of all types of disabilities. There is strength in numbers. This group found that it was much easier and they were taken more seriously by working together than any progress they could do alone. Using the ADA as their guide, the group works with area businesses, nonprofit agencies, and government entities. They collaborate, strategize, help educate, and bring awareness to others on issues surrounding the Americans with Disabilities Act. They've accomplished a lot in their first several years of existence, and the Independence Center would like to recognize the 5 core members of ACT and ask them to come up to the stage. Please welcome Sharon, Rick, Dave, Paul, and John. Definitely need my glasses for this one. Okay. Recognizing Accessible Communities Today, Americans with Disabilities Act 25th Anniversary Celebration, July 2015, from the Independence Center. Thank you.
One of the members in the back. How'd you get stuck eating in the back, Paul? I don't know, but Paul Spots is also a member of the ACT and very important as well.
Oh, yes.
We're going to ask our members of ACT to stay and hand out the awards as we talk about them.
Since ACT is on the front lines working with businesses and agencies, we knew they would have an idea who would deserve recognition for their work with the ADA. ACT has chosen 4 different entities as having been strong collaborators in improving access to programming and structures. The first of our recipients is the City of Colorado Springs. In March of 2014, the city hired Michael Killebrew to be their ADA coordinator. Some of the accomplishments of the ADA office have been installing a loop system in city council chambers, conducting a self-evaluation of city operations, and being one of the first cities west of the Mississippi to update the iconic person in the wheelchair symbol to a more updated, action-oriented figure. There's much more the city has done with the addition of the ADA office, and we're looking forward to working together to see what the future brings. Accepting this award for the city is Jeff Green, Chief of Staff for the City of Colorado Springs. Jeff had to leave, so it's Brett Waters.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. Our second award goes to another government entity. In August of 2014, an ADA coordinator was hired by the El Paso County. Rob Hernandez took the helm of the position, and he has been busy. Some of the highlights of his short tenure here: 3 video phones that are used by people who are deaf are in service at the Criminal Justice Center, and 6 more are in process for installation at 6 other county locations. These are like pay phones for deaf people in the community. The office has also established the El Paso County ADA Advisory Committee, which includes 10 county members, 5 opinion leaders in the community, and such as ACT in the Independence Center. They recently completed a wheelchair accessible viewing area and other significant accessibility upgrades at the El Paso County Fairgrounds. And they recently instituted an online ADA grievance process. I do want to recognize Jim Reed. Some of you who have been here for a while know that Jim and I had quite the conversation during the Waldo Canyon fire, and I'm so pleased that the Office of Emergency Preparedness at the city and the county have really turned it around for people with disabilities. So accepting this award is Commissioner Amy Latham. Jim and I are now very good friends. You should have used the ramp. That's why we have the ramp.
I just want to say that Patricia can be quite strong in her beliefs and has no problem sharing how she feels that instant. And if you don't know how she feels, just ask her. She'll tell you again. It's no problem. So I'm looking forward to working with Patricia and her crew and of course, these great folks. And we're going to get there. And it may take us a little while, but by darn, we're going to get there. Thank you.
Our third award winner is the congregation of the First Congregational Church, which is located close to downtown on St. Vrain and Tejon Street. The First Congregational Church occupies one of the oldest church buildings in the city that is still in continuous use by the same congregation. The building was built in 1888. Not a good year for accessibility. There were many areas of the building that folks in wheelchairs could never venture into. In the past years, they've made great strides. There we go. I should have numbered my pages. Great strides to have the building be accessible to wheelchairs. It all started in 2011 when a capital campaign was launched to restore the main sanctuary. New plans for an elevator addition were added to the list of capital projects. At the end of the campaign, they had raised enough money either to pay off the loan on the sanctuary work or to build the elevator addition. Much conversation ensued, and in January 2013, the congregation voted overwhelmingly to service the debt on the sanctuary and build the elevator addition to make 95% of their facility accessible. They completed the elevator in May, and church members in wheelchairs finally visited parts of their church they had never seen. I do not know their names, but will the representatives for the church please come up for their award?
Okay, we're having paper problems up here. Okay, I got it.
You got it? Oh, there you go.
This is a problem when you share a podium with somebody who uses bigger print than you do. Okay, where are we? Okay, you know, I'm really, when people talk about the ADA, they say, there are two groups that typically say, you know, we just don't have the money to do this, and that is churches and small businesses. And so I'm really pleased that you all chose these two organizations to recognize. You just saw the church who's done a wonderful job of including all of their parishioners. And now I'm going to be talking about the final one, which is discount tire sales. Recently, a person with a disability made a complaint regarding not being able to get into the discount tire on Woodman and Powers. The staff who handled the complaint at the location made sure to refer the consumer to the appropriate corporate officer and then followed up to make sure that the right connections had been made. Almost immediately after speaking to the corporate representative, a transformer was relocated, inaccessible stairs were moved, and the curbs were jackhammered out, and they were all replaced with a beautiful, new, accessible entrance. This is what gets me. In addition, they poured a circular driveway to allow easier access for the building. And take note, city and county, but particularly regional building, they did it in 3 weeks. Will the representatives from Direct Tire please come up to accept your award? Do we have anyone? Oh, good. I'm going to have to buy tires by the end of the year, and I know where I'm going to buy those tires. It's almost 1 o'clock and we have one more thing to do. We would like to invite the principal sponsors to join us on stage. Without the sponsors, you would have had to pay for lunch. And we are very, very grateful to the sponsors who helped us put this event together. So we'd like to have Brenda Belmer from Denver Management Advisors. Kim Beach and Rob Rubel from Cascade Investment, and Tom Ryder from Rocky Mountain Healthcare. Okay, John, I think before we do that, I do want to recognize two more people really quickly. Lim Pels is a new board member, and she helped us make this event perfect. We've never done one of these before, and she taught us how to do it. And of course, our own Terry Ulrich, Director of Resource Development, who put this together for all of us.
How about that? 1 o'clock, right on time. I like it when a plan comes together. Every day we have a chance to grow bigger than our differences, and today was definitely such a day. I hope y'all enjoyed our time together. There's only one small piece of business left. That is, select one of the people at your table to take home the beautiful centerpieces made by Skyway Creations. Just look under the saucer of the coffee cup and you might see or feel a brightly colored sticker. And whoever has that is the winner, or you can fight over it. I want to give a shout out to the young musicians from the Colorado Springs Conservatory. Always great to have them in the house. And a big thank you to our interpreters today. Great job. Thanks for coming, everybody. And hey, let's not wait another 25 years to do this again, huh? Thank you. Have a great day.